Hello and welcome to ReelTimeDublin, the film blog with a drinking problem, or the drinking blog with a film problem. It really depends on what day of the week you catch us on. Today we're going to dissect and go through The Martian. Now this was a lot of fun, directed by Ridley Scott. The cast is 1/8 of Interstellar, Matt Damon, Kristen Wiig, Jeff Daniels, Kate Mara and a whole bunch of potatoes. This had an Irish release of October 2015. I'm Adam, let's get through this. Okay, now, the trailer is down in the description. Give it a watch if you need your memory refreshed, but really, the premise is Matt Damon, yet again, is stuck in space. People keep leaving him there. Sadly, The Martian is not out of this world, but it's close. Films based off a book are always going to be hard to get right, and I applaud with all of my drunken energy any director who has the balls to try this, because the critics, as you may have guessed, are everywhere. And it's just painfully fashionable in these circles to take pot shots at directors who give it a go. That said, I'm going to take a few pot shots. Yep, and I cannot fault the film's visuals or photography, and the acting is everything it needed to be to make this work. The cast was very well chosen, and it was nice to see Wiig stretch her wings into a more serious role, alongside the epitome of someone who has changed gears in their style, Jeff Daniels. They make a great duo of bureaucracy, and they play well the decision makers behind the fun that is NASA blasting people into space. In terms of PR for NASA, I think this film has done a lot of favours by showing the corporate side of it and highlighting the sheer amount of work involved in sending someone into space and the compromises they have to make. In the film, Daniels, who plays the director of NASA, makes a great statement that's a very well articulated stab at how the government views space exploration as it sits in the priority list. And it says how NASA works so hard to cut costs and compromise safety to make space exploration cheaper, and then as soon as something goes wrong, they get blamed for it. So that was a really good parallel I think it drew onto a very real issue in a very, very real and important industry. Now, Ridley Scott got something very right that I haven't seen him get right for quite some time, and that is some phenomenal parallels in the form of a montage. They're really hard to pull off without being cheesy. The scene when the communication between home and Mars starts to work is just a beautiful series of flawless editing that really shaved some much needed runtime off this very long film. Now, to say that this film wasn't enjoyable would be wrong, but I would be remiss if I didn't say that I was a tad disappointed after it with some of the things that they didn't do, and some of the artistic and thematic choices that Scott, in all of his intergalactic wisdom, made. Before I start taking shots though, one thing I was very happy about was the pace of the opening act. There's very little setup and the action of the story just starts. For the first time in months, I've seen a film that paces the exposition and the story out perfectly and treats its audience as intelligent enough to work out what's going on with the things it's seeing. So major credit given for that. Don't treat your audience like kids. Now, I have very few faults with the film as a visual piece, but as a story it really doesn't lend itself too well to screen. It kind of should have stayed like a book. The overall theme of perseverance and the application and importance of knowledge in a survival situation gets very much rammed down your throat. The line from the trailer, "I'm going to have to science the shit out of this," is so painfully true and dragged out. And while it's enjoyable and makes for some great content, it does get a bit stale towards the middle of the second act, where it just turns into a really expensive episode of Mythbusters. Now, coming from the world of PR myself, I was really entertained by the behind closed doors scenes you get from inside of NASA when they're trying to come up with a really polite way of asking the man stranded on Mars, starving to death, not to curse because they have to release the transcripts of all the conversations to the press. That was a really, really nice dimension of NASA that you don't really see in other films. On that note, the film delivers a lot of really good laughs in the form of situational humour, where tension is relieved and the main points of the plot and situation are nicely summed up in a funny way. One notable scene is where they offer a solution to a big problem that arises during the rescue plan, and it's so bafflingly complex that as an audience, excluding any astrophysicists who may be in the theatre, you don't really know what to make of it. So the director makes a choice to have Damon's character simply throw a tantrum down the line at NASA like a child being told he can't go out to play. And it serves the purpose of letting you know that you don't have to worry about what you don't understand. Just know that it's good. NASA are humanized a lot, and it was really interesting to see the corporate and organizational side of it and show just how many jobs are actually created by this program. So, before I focus on some of the things that disappointed me, I must say that it is a very well made and well thought out film. Then again, it was already a bestseller book. How much credit can you really give? Now, casting, almost perfect. Almost. Childish Gambino, Donald Glover, no relation, is just a little bit too childish in his role, and there's no need for it. He's a talented comedic actor and writer, but I feel he was reaching a bit with this semi-serious role, almost playing his character from Community, but with an aerospace qualification. But my biggest problem, and the reason I left a bit disappointed, is because I never got the sense of sheer, vast, terrifying and crippling loneliness that being trapped on Mars would bring. With CGI where it is today, I was really looking forward to some of the visual sequencing, or in short, something that would scare the hell out of me and give me some scale to just how alone he was. Now, some may make the point that he had communication eventually, and this meant the director made the choice to show us that he was never truly alone. And I will make a point to ignore that and say I wanted some fear. Fear is the one thing you never get from Damon's character, and the fact that he's having an absolute whale of a time up there, floating around with his potatoes and his disco music, that really got to me. One scene actually did strike some fear into my Irish heart, and that's the scene where his potatoes are ruined in a horrific airlock accident. Seeing space bite take hold like that, that'll strike fear in any Irishman's heart. Even on Mars, famine will get you. Can't get away from it. Now, in terms of a character change or some character development, he sheds some weight and he grows a beard. But other than that, I didn't get the sense that the experience changed him as a person. And being trapped alone anywhere for 10 months would drastically change someone, especially if this is on fucking Mars. Now, the pivotal rescue scene in the third act. This is the thing you're looking forward to the whole movie. When you see what happens, you're wondering, how are they going to get this man off Mars? And while this scene is moving, it's a little bit too rushed. And I wonder, if they'd spent less time in the boardroom and more time in the rocket, would the scene have presented itself differently and giving it the presence it deserved in the film? Now, I was expecting and already making comparisons to something like Castaway in my head, but instead you get a film more like Captain Phillips, in space. Which isn't a bad thing. They did an amazing job of creating a very tense, so near yet so far vibe that Captain Phillips is currently the reigning champion of trapped films in my book. Now, having read the book, I was expecting something different. But the film is still very enjoyable, and I would have loved to have been proved wrong in saying that it may be another award piece for Matt Damon. If there's one thing to take away from the film, it's that people need to stop leaving Matt Damon in space. Matt Damon just needs to stay away from airlocks, and America has spent so much money rescuing him from situations like war, and space again, that maybe he should just be sent on, like, smaller missions, you know? You've done your service to the country, Matt. Take a seat. Alright, we gave this film a 3.5 review. Not great. Not amazing, not awful either. That's everything this week. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more drunken reviews, and of course follow us on WordPress at ReelTimeDublin.com. Like, subscribe, argue with us in the comment section below. I'm going to have a few more drinks, so I'll be down there ready to fight. See you all again next week.